Hello, beautiful people. My name is Kristen. Thanks for stopping by my channel to discuss today's reviews of nonfiction that I read for Nonfiction November. I did have to pass one of them onto my possibilities for December, the Thomas Sowell's Personal Odyssey. I was hoping to get to this one, but I did not. And I technically started, but barely, the Lewis and Clark nonfiction. So I can't give a full review on this yet, but so far, after 70 pages in, I am really enjoying it, and it is a fun story. This was going to count for my prompt of fraud. So, you know, particularly frauding the Native Americans out of their land, and a lot of fraud just within the land rights that were going on at that time. Now, for the ones I did finish, I like to try to have a goal to read particularly autobiographies, but sometimes biographies of presidents in the month of November. You know, it's kind of election month, so it's a good time. And so I read Carter. I read the White House Diary. Now, this is his kind of excerpts of actual exact diary notes that he took while in office from 77 to 81. And then 30 years later, almost exactly, he wrote like separate italics notes about his diary notes. So he would do a little entry and what his thoughts were, and entry and what his thoughts were. So sometimes that can be kind of dry reading, but when you come across something that's kind of piques your interest, it's very detailed and organized, and you can learn quite a bit. So I actually really enjoyed doing that in a weird kind of academic more way, but also ironically, I had just finished this book less than a week when Rosalind Carter passed. And of course, in his diary, he goes into great detail about spending time with Rosalind and his daughter Amy, and what they were doing, going to Amy's violin recital this evening. And Rosalind represented the U.S. so often. Her gifting was really foreign affairs with the Spanish-speaking countries, particularly South America. She flew down and represented and spoke on behalf of the United States, and did an outstanding job from, you know, the notes and the outcomes of those kind of things. It was eerie reading in 1977. I felt like I was reading 2023 as far as they're talking about Israel, they're talking about Palestine, they're talking about the Gaza Strip conflicts, they're talking about shady deals within Congress, not getting along, having to buy votes, talking about corruption in the voting. They're talking about all these things that are still being talked about, absolutely. So do not pretend for 1 minute that this is something new or something that hasn't happened in the past. And if we're totally honest, if we go back to those founding fathers, there were feuds, there was corruption, there was, you know, false letters being written and circulated to try to stir up drama and trouble. This is human nature, unfortunately, being that kind of, how can we get something over someone? How can we get something for nothing? It should not belong in a body that is trying to govern for the good of the people. But I still say democracy is way better than anything else that's out there, because it's all being run by broken, you know, sinful humans that are going to even intentionally make bad choices. So I learned a ton about so many things. This is where Jimmy Carter sent his mother to represent. And she, surrounded by the news media, said, "I am delighted to be in Italy for 3 reasons. First, I understand you have just elected a fine young president who I'm eager to meet since my husband has passed away." President Sandro Perdurini was 2 years older than Mama. Second, as a Methodist and now a Baptist, my highest religious ambition will be realized when I meet the Pope. And third, I have never met an ugly Italian. Jimmy's Carter family was quite the character, and he was a beautiful person, despite what you may or may not agree with his politics, but he really did have a big heart and tried to, love on people and look out for people. So next, for the prompt of display, I finally got to Braiding Sweetgrass. This is a beautiful kind of memoir account. Let me read the cover kind of tagline, because I think it does a pretty good description. It says, indigenous wisdom, scientific knowledge, and the teachings of plants. And the only thing I think that would be better describer is if it said indigenous wisdom and spirituality. It actually does quite a bit of in-depth discussion about the religious beliefs of the Native Americans, and then how does that relate to their beliefs on how they treat the land, how they harvest and use their herbs and animals and all that kind of stuff. And it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Let me see if I can. So here's something. This is the guidelines of the honorable harvest. They were not often written down, but they were consistently spoken as the law. Know the ways of the ones who take care of you, so that you may take care of them. Introduce yourself and be accountable as the one who comes asking for life. Ask permission before taking and abide by the answer. Never take first, never take the last. Take only what you need. Take only that which is given. Never take more than half. Always leave some for others. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm and use it respectfully. Never waste what you have taken. Share. Give thanks for what you have been given. Give a gift in reciprocity for what you have taken. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. And just the almost philosophy about harvesting, about fishing, about planting, agriculture, and not trying to get every last grain, not trying to get every last fish, because then it disrupts the natural cycle. It takes away from other animals, creatures, and people who need those resources. And at times we've become so greedy, trying to maximize profits and the land, that we're in turn hurting ourselves and our future by depleting the resources. So just a beautiful book, just explaining it, celebrating it, learning new things. Fantastic. For the prompt of web for nonfiction, I read John Crist, Delete That. This is his comedic look of the world of social media and how his life account dealt with, people either celebrating or attacking him personally, and just his kind of struggling through that. It actually has a real kind of sincere human side of not really apologizing for his life or anything he's done, but just kind of being real and talking through some of his struggles and some of his triumphs and learnings. And he just has a very, very strong sense of humor about it, which I think is a real gift. So I had a great time reading this, just thought it was particularly funny. Not long ago, I shared an Instagram story from the McDonald's drive-thru. I don't remember the particular story was about, probably something about how people need to memorize their orders, about how the ice cream machine's broken, but the response to the video struck me. First of all, why are you at McDonald's? Well, that's what you get for eating at McDonald's. Do you have any idea how unhealthy that place is? McDonald's, bro. Really? I haven't eaten there since I was 10. I'll never eat there again. I legit found a thumb in my McChicken last week. Okay, I made the last one up. But here's the point. How come no one will ever own up to eating at McDonald's? How come no one posts a photo digging into Big Macs on the Instagram page? But they can't stop posting the kale salad and the cleansing detox kombucha. According to the internet, the fast forward-facing version of ourselves, everyone is too good, too healthy, and too image conscious to hit the dollar menu at 2 a.m. Someone's eating there. Millions of people served every day. And so it's this great, funny look at what is reality and what is the facade that we put on social media, and how is that helpful and how is that harmful. So really, really good with, like I said, a bunch of humor. So those were the prompts of the official. And then I read some more because I really had been looking forward to Meb Keflezighi's autobiography of 26 marathons. A marathon is 26.2 miles, and he legitly raced in 26 marathons, and that was just a beautiful official career for him. He went to the Olympics. He has just really stood for America, representing us in so many ways. And one of the powerful stories is, if you recall that bombing in Boston at the marathon, when it reopened the next year, he was actually the winner, which it is rare for an American to win the Boston Marathon because it's very high profile and lots of money involved, and so it attracts really, really fast runners from all over the world. So the fact that he pulled it out and won it as an American the year after the bombing and kind of reclaimed the spirit of the Boston Marathon was just really, really powerful. He's a man of faith, so he relies on his own strength as well as through the Lord. It's just a really great character building. He always has, at the beginning of his chapter, he talks about each different marathon, and he talks about a lesson learned. So key lesson in like the third one here, it says under promise and over deliver. So that was his lesson in that one. So there are things that even if you're not a runner, you can apply them to life. So then I buddy read Crying in Hmart by Michele Zauner. Is that how you say her name? So she told her kind of story and process of the grief of losing her mother to cancer. And really that was a bond with her mom through food and the culture of her Korean heritage. Her mom was Korean, her dad was American. And so also kind of comments about how do you navigate being of two different backgrounds and trying to honor both, trying to live in both or fit in both, but not really fully accepted in either because you're also got one foot in the other culture. And there is a lot of beautiful descriptions of food and cooking and how that relates to her, going through the grieving process. And sometimes it was almost too much, but I'm not a cook person and I'm not a big foodie person. I love to eat, of course, but she just had a very raw also time of saying, this is how I feel and this is how I made some bad decisions, or this is where I really messed up and this is how I kind of work through that. So I love the honesty of it. I think if you were a person that was in the midst of dealing with some anxiety and grief and loss, that this would probably be a book that would be very like camaraderie, right? Like yes, here's somebody else that understands what I'm going through, kind of thing. And there's not recipes to go do it, but there's actually Hmarts. I did not know this. I mean, it's a memoir. There has to be real ones, right? But I drove past one and I went, oh my gosh, there's an Hmart. It's like one of those things like once you start becoming aware of something, you see them everywhere. So yeah, that was fun. These last two books, I technically started them and even finished them before the month of November, but both of them have finalized being used in the month of Nonfiction November, and I haven't really talked about this one at all, and I want to. Tasha's Morrison, Be the Bridge. This is a book that was written by a beautiful Black American woman who is sharing her life and experiences about having discrimination, other people's discrimination, how she's worked through that, and how she wants to continue to engage people into the conversation for racial reconciliation. There is actually groups that meet. I actually participated in one online, some people from all around the country that get together and share their experiences, share their stories and what's going on. And it's just a safe place to do that. Like, that's what's going to be talked about. So it's even though these can sometimes be awkward and difficult, you knew that it was okay because that's what you came to discuss. And I really appreciated that. I'd be like, I need this unpacked for me. I need this statement explained to me because I've heard it, I don't know it, or I don't know the fullness of what that means. It's like, what does it mean when, now my friends, a Black friend walks into a school and they feel like they're being evaluated for what kind of Black woman are they? And I'm like, what are the options? And it's interesting because it's not necessarily what I think, and it may mean different things in different parts of the country. So, and the quote I kind of want to share from this one is actually by Frederick Douglass, that I read his narrative story last year, I think in February, and was just struck by how raw, I was going to say beautifully written, and it is, I think the better said, well written, because writing about your experiences of slavery is painful. And so he did that. And then I love this excerpt that it talks about in here. It says, Frederick Douglass used whatever podium he stood behind, whatever platform he stepped on, and whatever metaphorical mic he had passed for the purpose of calling the United States to a change of course. But this fight wasn't just for himself or the freeing of the slave. His fight was for the soul of America. He called the people to wake up, to see where their faith and religion had gone astray. Douglass knew that if those who claimed to be Christians finally saw God for who he was, and if white people changed course and viewed African Americans as image bearers of the Almighty, that God could wash away the sins of the country. God could lead the nation into a better, more just future, one not cursed with spiritual blindness. And I just love that, seeing all people, all nations, all ages, all genders, all people as image bearers of the Almighty. Yes, if we saw one another the way our Creator saw us, it's kind of like if you have many children or you have many pets or whatever it is, you love them all. You want them to get along, but they all have different personalities and they're all going to behave different ways. But you want them all in one family because they are one family. And this is the bridge that needs to be created. Anyway, it never hurts to learn and be aware and have more education that contributes to communicating reconciliation. I also had my staff meeting for the book Play. I did talk briefly about this, so I won't go into this in detail, but I did say I would circle back and talk about it. Basically, we read it for a preschool, but this is actually kind of geared for adults. It's geared for how every single one of us really grows and receives a lot. Even animals totally learn and thrive and even survive better when there's play in their life. So if you need something to encourage you to play more and to put that in your life, this book does that. And I'm basically telling you right now, you don't even have to read the book. I'm telling you, yes, there's scientific documentation that playing helps you. So add some play to your life today and a good book, because we learn stuff and that just enhances our life and stretches us in ways that are really, really healthy. So leave me a comment if you've read any of these, what you think about them. Do you want to read any of them now? What did you read in Nonfiction November or are going to read this month for nonfiction? I super just adore that genre. I love that it always teaches me something that I didn't know before. And it's okay to admit that we just don't know everything and we have room that we need to learn more. So happy reading, y'all. Happy December. Take care. I will see y'all again soon. Bye-bye.